Undercover CEO found a dishwasher working double shifts without pay. What he uncovered was heartbreaking. The clang of a skillet crashing to the tile floor cut through the chaos of the dinner rush like a gunshot. For a moment, the kitchen at Northside Grill froze. "What the hell is this, Emma?" barked the manager, Dennis, pointing at the slip for table 12. "This was supposed to be chicken marsala, not grilled salmon. Are you trying to screw up the entire line?" Emma Hayes didn't argue. Her hands, wet from scrubbing pans, trembled slightly. She bent down, picked up the skillet with a towel, and returned it to the sink. Her blonde hair was tucked into a messy bun under a faded cap. Her apron bore stains from the day's work. "It wasn't her ticket," someone muttered. No one spoke louder. A younger cook snorted. "She works like a slave and still smiles. What's wrong with her?" Emma heard it but kept scrubbing, face turned just enough to hide the flush creeping up her neck. She said nothing. At the dish station beside her, Ryan Weston stood still. To them, he was Kyle, the new guy. Cheap shoes, borrowed uniform, a name tag clipped crookedly to his shirt. But in truth, he was the CEO of Weston Dining Group, the company that owned this franchise, and no one knew why he was really here. Ryan had grown up in kitchens like this. His mother once worked at one of their earliest locations, cleaning late into the night until the day she reported unsafe working conditions. She was fired 2 weeks later for performance issues. The real reason was retaliation. She died a year later, too proud to let him help, too broken to fight anymore. He was 22 and powerless then, but he'd made himself a promise. One day he'd take control of the system that failed her and fix it. Now, years later, boardrooms had become routine. Policies were polished but disconnected. He stopped trusting reports from his managers. So he came undercover, to see with his own eyes. And today, he saw Emma. After the rush calmed, Ryan picked up a rag and helped wipe down the counters. "You okay?" he asked, not looking directly at her. Emma kept working. "I'm fine." "That wasn't your mistake." She smiled faintly. "It never is." "You always stay this late?" She shrugged. "Just a training shift." "How many days you been training?" 14, she said. 14 days, 14 shifts, 2 a day. Ryan frowned. "You've been working doubles for 2 weeks?" "I'm not officially hired yet," she said quickly. "Just proving myself." "That legal?" She let out a dry chuckle. "It doesn't really matter, does it?" Before he could answer, she walked away with a stack of trays. That night, after everyone left, Ryan lingered near the mop closet, pretending to double-check supplies. Emma returned to the dish pit, arms elbow-deep in greasy water. She moved like a machine, quiet, focused. Her rag was worn thin, her hands were cracked and red from the chemicals. Then he noticed her glance toward the bread basket by the prep line. Most of it had been tossed, but a small heel of baguette remained. She dried her hands on her apron, looked around, and reached for it. She held it gently, almost reverently, and took a small bite. Ryan stood frozen. It wasn't the hunger that hit him hardest, it was how quietly she moved. Like someone used to shame. Someone who had long ago learned how to tuck her pain behind a polite smile. His chest ached. In that moment she reminded him of his mother, wiping down the same counters, hiding the same tired eyes. He turned away, jaw clenched, breath stuck in his throat. Whatever he came here to find, he had just found it. And it hurt. Ryan stood across the street, half hidden by a flickering street lamp, watching Emma disappear into the aging apartment complex. The building looked like it had been forgotten by time, peeling paint, sagging windows, a front door hanging slightly off its hinges. It was well past midnight. He should have gone home. But something about Emma's quiet endurance during the shift lingered in his chest. When she walked out alone, clutching a crumpled paper bag from the restaurant, he found himself following. He crossed the street a few minutes later, drawn to the faint light behind torn blinds on the ground floor. Through a narrow gap, he caught a glimpse of her world. The living room was tiny, bare walls, a sagging couch, a foldable table, and one photo on the wall, a faded image of a woman and two children. Emma walked in, set the paper bag on the table, then disappeared down a hallway. Moments later she returned, pushing a wheelchair. Her mother sat slumped, gray hair thin, eyes vacant. Emma knelt beside her. "Hi, Mama," she whispered, adjusting her shawl. "It's okay now. I'm home." She pulled out mashed potatoes and a bread roll from the bag. Sitting on the floor, she spoon-fed her mother, gently, patiently. Her mother didn't speak. Emma didn't rush. There was no frustration, no hurry, only quiet, steadfast love. Ryan's throat tightened. Eventually, Emma wheeled her mother back to her room and returned, slower than before. She rubbed her eyes, then opened a second door. Inside, a teenage boy sat on a mattress on the floor, a notebook in his lap. "You're still up?" she asked. "Math's killing me," he groaned. Emma smiled and dropped beside him. "Let me see." They leaned over the notebook together. She pointed, explained, drew with her finger, guiding him patiently through the problem. Her voice was too soft to hear, but her face glowed with the same warmth she had given her mother. Afterward, she tousled his hair. "Sleep now. Big day tomorrow." "I'm not a kid," he mumbled. She kissed his forehead anyway. Back in the living room, Emma unwrapped the bread roll. She sat alone on the couch and ate slowly. No TV, no phone, just silence. Just the need to stretch a small meal into something more. Ryan pressed a hand to the cold glass. This wasn't just a dishwasher. She was a daughter, a sister, a caregiver, a survivor. She had worked 14 hours under relentless pressure, then came home to a mother who no longer knew her, and a brother who still needed homework help. And yet, she gave everything. Ryan had seen the numbers, staffing reports, shift audits, policy memos, but none of it prepared him for this, to see the cost, the human toll. Then came the moment that shattered him. Emma looked toward the hallway, where a faint light still glowed from her mother's room. She held the piece of bread in both hands like it was precious. "Don't worry, Mama," she whispered. "I'm okay. I still have my job. Today, I found a whole piece of bread. It wasn't even touched." She smiled to herself and took a small bite. Ryan turned away, eyes burning. He had come to audit a restaurant. Instead, he had witnessed a quiet miracle, and something inside him broke wide open. From that night on, Ryan could no longer unsee what he had witnessed. Emma was no longer just another overworked employee in a struggling restaurant. She was the quiet force holding her broken world together. And somehow, despite everything, she still moved through each shift with grace. He began watching her more closely, not in a way that would make her feel observed, but as someone who was learning. Every day she showed up on time, hair pulled back, apron already stained by the time the lunch rush began. She never checked her phone, never complained, never said no to taking on extra trays or cleaning someone else's mess. She had a rhythm, a method to her labor, like washing dishes was a sacred act. Ryan caught the first moment by accident. It was the middle of a slammed Saturday night. Orders were stacking up, the dishwasher was jammed, and the tension in the kitchen had boiled over. Emma moved fast, flipping open the industrial washer, steam clouding her face as she reached for another pan. Then came the sound of glass shattering. A vibration rippled the air. Then she shouted, "Up!" And the bowl had cracked in the heat and exploded in her hands. She flinched, instinctively dropping it. Ryan saw the red almost immediately, thin lines of blood threading from the side of her palm. "Emma," he started, stepping forward. "I'm fine," she said quickly, gripping a towel and hiding the wound behind her back. But she was not fine. Ryan followed her quietly around the corner and found her at the utility sink, rinsing the cut under cold water, lips pressed tight. He didn't say anything. He just pulled a handkerchief from his pocket, a real one, not a disposable napkin, and wrapped it gently around her hand. She looked at him then, really looked. Her eyes were wet, but not from the pain. "You always carry that?" she asked, trying to sound light. He smiled. "Old habit." She nodded, then took a breath. "I've had worse." "I can tell," he replied softly. She didn't respond, but when she turned back to the dishes, she kept the handkerchief on. Later that week, during a quieter lunch shift, Ryan was asked to call out an order to the servers. He stared at the ticket and stumbled. Chicken Florentine?" he guessed. Emma looked up from the dish pit. "Florentine," she corrected gently, wiping her hands on a towel. "With spinach." He gave a sheepish shrug. "Guess I'm still learning." She walked over and tapped the ticket. "You'll get the hang of it. Next time just ask. I've got your back." He smiled. "Deal." That small exchange stuck with him all day. It wasn't what she said, it was how she said it. No condescension, no sarcasm, just warmth. She made him feel like he belonged. But the moment that sealed it came on a night when a storm swept through town. The wind rattled the back doors, and the lights flickered just before the last shift change. Then, darkness. The power went out. There were a few gasps from the staff. One cook dropped a pan. The emergency lights kicked on in the hallway, casting long, eerie shadows through the kitchen. Someone cursed. Ryan was about to pull out his phone flashlight when he saw Emma already at work. She grabbed a few candles from the manager's office, tea lights meant for decorative centerpieces, and placed them carefully along the counters. The kitchen transformed into a soft, flickering glow. She moved with quiet calm, passing out paper towels, guiding people by instinct. Ryan lit a candle and joined her as she scrubbed down the stainless steel counters. The two of them worked side by side, not saying much, the silence filled by the gentle scrape of sponge on metal and the occasional crack of thunder outside. It should have felt eerie. Instead, it felt peaceful. He stole a glance at her, her face bathed in candlelight. Her features were tired but composed, focused but soft. There was something sacred about the moment, about doing something so mundane as cleaning a kitchen, yet feeling like it mattered. He had worked in luxury restaurants, been served by five-star chefs, eaten on rooftops with views of city skylines. But he had never seen anyone wash dishes like this, with dignity, with care, with something like love. That night, he lay in bed and realized he was no longer just observing. He was beginning to care, and maybe beginning to hope. It was the kind of mistake that happened in every restaurant. Someone misread a ticket, and the wrong dish ended up on the wrong table. But in Northside Grill, mistakes had a way of landing on the same shoulders every time. "Who made this damn plate?" Dennis, the manager, held up a seared pork chop, eyes scanning the kitchen like a bloodhound. "Table 9 said they ordered the salmon special. This is pork. Who plated this?" The cooks exchanged glances. A few looked away. One guy smirked. No one spoke. Dennis turned sharply toward the dish pit. Emma froze, sponge in hand. "You again?" he snapped, marching over. "Did you switch the tickets again?" Emma started, her voice barely audible. "Every single time it's you," Dennis growled. "You think just because you're always quiet I won't notice when you screw up? You're lucky I haven't fired you already." Ryan, stacking trays nearby, dropped the top one with a clatter. "It wasn't her," he said sharply, stepping forward before he could stop himself. "She hasn't been near the tickets all day." Dennis whipped his head around. "Excuse me? She's been on dishes since the start of shift. I was on prep with Luis when the order was called." It wasn't her. Ryan didn't know why his voice shook. It wasn't fear. It was fury, tightly contained behind clenched teeth. Dennis took a step forward, lips curled. "You've been here 5 minutes, Kyle. Don't pretend you know how this place works." Before Ryan could reply, he felt a soft tug at his sleeve. He turned. Emma stood beside him, pale and stiff, her fingers wrapped gently around his wrist. She looked at him, not angry, not ashamed, just pleading. "Don't," she whispered. "Please, it's okay." "It's not okay. It is," she insisted. "If I make a fuss, if he fires me, there's no backup plan." No food stamps, no second job. If I get fired, my mom dies. Ryan stared at her. The kitchen noise swirled around them, orders being shouted, pans hitting burners, knives chopping, but in that moment it all fell away. This was what it meant to survive. Not fight, not scream, just endure. She let go of his wrist and turned back to the sink. Dennis scoffed, muttered something under his breath, and walked away with the plate. No one else said a word. An hour later, after the rush had died and the kitchen began to empty, Emma slipped into the break room. Ryan hesitated before quietly following. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead, casting a pale, tired glow over the lockers and mismatched chairs. She sat alone on the edge of the bench, arms wrapped around herself, head bowed. He watched her for a moment, unsure, then he stepped inside, careful not to startle her. She did not look up, but when she spoke, her voice was barely more than a breath. "I didn't do it," she whispered, "but I took the blame anyway." Again, Ryan sat down beside her, keeping a respectful distance. He said nothing, just waited. "I thought I could handle it," she continued. "If I stayed quiet, if I just worked harder, maybe they'd let me stay. Maybe it would all be worth it." She let out a shaky breath and finally looked at him. "But it doesn't get better, it just gets heavier." Her eyes glistened, her hands clenched in her lap, and then, finally, the dam broke. Tears spilled silently down her cheeks. Her shoulders shook as she cried, not loud, not messy, just quietly, like someone who had cried alone too many times to remember how to cry any other way. Ryan did not speak. He did not try to fix it. He just reached out, slowly, and placed his hand gently on her shoulder. A small gesture. But Emma did not flinch. She leaned into it, just a little, enough to know someone was there, enough to breathe for a second without holding everything in. They sat like that, side by side, in a break room that smelled of burnt coffee and disinfectant as the storm inside her passed. And in the silence, Ryan made another vow, unspoken but ironclad. She would not cry alone again. Not if he had anything to say about it. The kitchen was unusually quiet for a Friday night. Most of the staff had already clocked out, their laughter echoing faintly from the parking lot beyond the back exit. Ryan remained behind, casually stacking trays and watching Emma from across the room. She moved slower than usual, hands trembling slightly as she rinsed out the last few pans. She had just worked her second back-to-back double shift. 16 hours, barely a break. No dinner, no complaint. Her skin looked pale under the harsh fluorescent lights, and her steps were unsure. Ryan had seen enough people push themselves past exhaustion before, but this was different. This was someone holding herself together with the last threads of sheer will. "Emma?" he called gently, but she did not answer. She turned slowly and reached for a box of cleaning rags on the top shelf in the supply room. As she rose onto her toes, the edges of her vision must have gone dark. She swayed once, then collapsed. "Emma?" Ryan was at her side in seconds. Her body was limp, her breathing shallow, skin clammy to the touch. He checked her pulse, weak but present, and scooped her up in his arms. She weighed almost nothing. He carried her through the kitchen and down the hall to the employee break room, where the lights had already been dimmed for the night. He laid her gently on the old vinyl couch, grabbed a towel from a nearby locker, and dampened it with cool water. Kneeling beside her, he dabbed her forehead, heart pounding with something far more than panic. After a minute, her lashes fluttered. She stirred, brow furrowing in confusion. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe." Emma blinked, trying to focus on his face. Her lips parted. The words that came out made his chest tighten. "Am I fired?" Ryan froze. Of all the things she could have said, of all the questions she might ask after fainting from exhaustion, that was her first. "No," he whispered, brushing a strand of damp hair from her cheek. "No, you're not fired." She closed her eyes for a second, relief washing over her face. But then her voice cracked, barely audible. Don't tell my mom. Ryan leaned in closer. What if she opened her eyes again, filled with quiet desperation? Please. Don't let her know I collapsed. She worries so much already. If she thinks I'm not okay, it'll make everything worse. Ryan swallowed hard, his throat burning. Emma. She looked away, ashamed. I have to keep this job. I have to keep her calm. If she thinks I'm falling apart, she won't eat. She won't sleep. I've seen it happen before. She tried to sit up, but he gently held her back. You need to rest, just for a minute. Let someone else carry the weight tonight. Her eyes welled up again, but this time it was not from weakness. It was from something deeper, something older. The exhaustion of 1,000 silent battles, fought with no one to witness them, and then instinctively, Ryan took her hand. He did not speak. He did not promise things he could not guarantee. He just held it, firm and steady. Emma stared at their hands for a long moment, as if unsure whether to pull away or hold tighter. She did neither. Instead, she whispered, "You're kind." Ryan gave a faint smile. "I just hate seeing good people fall." They sat like that for several minutes, her eyes drifting shut, his fingers still wrapped around hers, his mind spinning. He had come here to investigate, to observe, to gather evidence. But somewhere along the way, something had shifted. This wasn't just empathy anymore. It was something more. It was how her voice lingered in his memory when she comforted her mother. It was how her laugh, rare and soft, felt like light breaking through a storm. It was the way she fought through pain, not with anger, but with grace. And now, watching her sleep with the faintest trace of vulnerability on her face, Ryan realized the truth with painful clarity. He was in love. Not with her story, not with the symbol of her resilience, but with her. Emma Hayes, the girl who scrubbed dishes with cracked hands and came home to brokenness, but still made space for hope. He squeezed her hand once, gently, as if to anchor her in a world that too often forgot people like her. "I see you," he whispered. "And I'm not going anywhere." The meeting was called for 9 a.m. sharp. Every employee was expected to attend, no exceptions. It was odd. No one had ever seen upper management call an all-staff meeting at Northside Grill, much less on a weekday morning. The kitchen staff whispered. Servers exchanged wary glances. Dennis, the manager, paced by the register, barking instructions under his breath as if the restaurant's foundation might collapse from a surprise inspection. Emma sat near the back of the dining area, her hands folded in her lap. She looked as tired as always, but there was a different air about her. Calm, centered, watching. Then the double doors swung open. Ryan stepped inside, not in his usual wrinkled shirt and name tag that read Kyle, but in a dark suit and tie. He walked with quiet authority toward the front of the room. Everyone froze. It was Dennis who spoke first. "Can I help you, sir?" Ryan turned slowly. "I think you already have," he said, voice calm, eyes unwavering, "but not in the way you think." Murmurs rippled through the staff. Ryan stepped up onto a low platform near the host stand, facing them all. "My name is Ryan Weston," he said. "I'm the CEO of Weston Dining Group, and for the last several weeks I've been working here undercover." The silence was immediate and absolute. Dennis turned pale. The smirk vanished from the younger cook's face. The server who once called Emma a smiling slave stared at the floor. Ryan continued, "I didn't come here to scare anyone. I came because I stopped trusting what I saw on paper. Reports are easy to clean up, numbers can be massaged, but the truth? The truth hides in the everyday moments, in who picks up the dropped dishes, in who stays late without asking, in who eats last, if at all." He clicked a remote in his hand. The flat screen behind the bar flickered to life. A series of surveillance clips played, no audio, just time-stamped footage. Emma wiping down the sink long after hours. Emma bowing her head as Dennis shouted in her face. Emma collapsing in the storage room. Emma, again and again, doing more than her job required and receiving nothing in return. Then came audio, recorded during a shift. Ryan's own voice asking, "You always stay this late?" Emma's reply, "Just a training shift." The room remained silent, a weight settling into the chests of everyone watching. Dennis stepped forward, flustered. This is being taken out of context. We give opportunities here. Sometimes you have to test a worker's commitment." "No," came a voice from the back. Firm, clear, everyone turned. Emma had stood up. Her face was pale but composed. Her hands trembled slightly, but her eyes did not waver. She walked slowly to the front, past the rows of shocked co-workers, past the frozen form of her manager. She stopped just a few feet from Dennis. "You think because I'm quiet you can do whatever you want," she said, her voice steady but soft. "You think silence is permission, that if someone needs this job badly enough, you can treat them however you like." Dennis opened his mouth, but Emma kept going. "But you can't. You can't treat people like garbage just because they need to eat, just because they're scared." She turned toward the room, her eyes sweeping over the faces she'd worked beside for weeks. "I used to think I only had two choices, keep my head down or lose everything. I thought survival meant staying small. But I was wrong." Her voice grew stronger. "I have the right to work without being afraid. I have the right to live, not just exist. And so does every single person in this room." A few people nodded. One of the servers wiped her eyes. Even the dishwasher in the back, usually quiet, uninterested, stood a little taller. Ryan stepped down from the platform and walked toward her. Not as a CEO now, but as a man who had once watched his own mother break under the weight of the same silence. "You're right," he said, voice thick with emotion. "And I want to say this clearly. No one in this company should ever feel invisible. Emma, you didn't just speak for yourself today. You spoke for hundreds of people who are still too scared to find their voice." His eyes misted. "You're not invisible. You are the light we've been missing." Then he turned to Dennis. "You're fired. Effective immediately." No one clapped, no one cheered, but the silence was no longer fear. It was relief. Emma stared at Ryan, stunned. "So, all this time, you were watching me?" He looked at her gently. "No," he said. "I wasn't watching you. I was learning from you. I've learned how to listen, how to lead, and somewhere in that, I learned how to love you." The words hung there, soft but seismic. Emma's eyes filled with tears, but this time she did not look down, she did not hide. She simply nodded, a breath catching in her throat, no longer invisible and no longer silent. The door was slightly ajar when Ryan knocked. From inside the apartment, he heard the gentle hum of a pencil scratching across paper and the soft murmur of a woman's voice. He knocked again, more softly this time. Emma opened the door, her hair pulled back into a loose braid, an oversized hoodie falling off one shoulder. She looked surprised but not startled. "Ryan?" he smiled. "I hope I'm not interrupting." She stepped aside, wordlessly inviting him in. Inside, the living room looked warmer than he remembered. A blanket was draped neatly across the couch, and a candle flickered softly on the table. Her younger brother sat at the fold-up dining table, pencil in hand, tongue pressed to the corner of his mouth in concentration. Emma had been helping him with math homework. "I won't stay long," Ryan said. "I just wanted to give you something." He reached into his coat and pulled out a thick envelope, placing it gently on the table next to her. Emma looked down at it, confused. "What is it?" "Two things," he said. "A full scholarship to return to medical school, and a job offer, senior advisor for employee advocacy. We're building a new program to protect people like you, and I want you to help lead it." She didn't touch the envelope. Her hands hovered above it as if it might disappear. "Why?" she whispered. "Why are you doing this for me?" Ryan's voice was soft. "Because you reminded me that people don't grow through power or wealth. They grow through gratitude, through humility, through witnessing someone else's courage and choosing to rise with them." Emma stared at him, eyes wide, blinking away the tears gathering at the corners. She swallowed, then nodded slowly. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady but thick with emotion. Ryan gave her a small smile, nodded to her brother, then turned to leave. The sky had opened up by the time he reached the sidewalk. Rain fell in sheets, cold and clean, soaking his shirt in seconds. He walked slowly, not caring. Then he heard it. The door slamming open behind him, the sound of footsteps, and her voice. "Ryan." He turned. Emma ran through the rain, hair plastered to her face, hoodie clinging to her skin. She caught up to him and, without a word, threw her arms around his waist, burying her face in his chest. "I was scared," she murmured. "Scared that if I let myself hope, it would all disappear." He held her close, breath catching. "But now," she whispered, "I want to live, not just survive. And I want to live with you." Ryan wrapped his arms around her tighter, closing his eyes as the rain poured down. In that moment, nothing else existed. Not the past, not the pain. Only two people finally choosing each other. 6 months had passed. Fall had settled over the city, golden leaves drifting lazily from trees, crunching beneath shoes. The air felt lighter somehow, as if the world, too, had started over. Emma Hayes stood outside the university's main hall, backpack over one shoulder, her hair swept into a loose ponytail. Her eyes sparkled with something she had once forgotten she could feel: joy. She was back in school, studying medicine again, the dream she had once given up for survival now alive and real. A full scholarship covered tuition, books, and more. In the evenings, she joined virtual meetings as a senior advisor for employee advocacy at Weston Dining Group. She took the role seriously. Every policy she helped write, every change she recommended, came from a place of lived experience. She thought of workers like her, quiet, overlooked, resilient. And in every decision, she left space for dignity. Her mother now lived in a care facility funded by the company's new health initiative. Most days were good ones. The nurses said she smiled when she heard Emma's name. Her younger brother, Max, was thriving in his new school. He came home full of excitement about math, science, and the occasional bad cafeteria pizza. And Ryan? He was still there. Their relationship wasn't flashy. There were no public declarations, just shared coffees, long walks, and the ease of two people who had been through the worst and still believed in better. One afternoon, Emma brought coffee to Ryan's office. She found him staring at something on his desk, a small frame. Inside, neatly pressed under glass, was her old dishwashing apron. Faded, frayed, stained. Emma raised a brow. "You kept that?" Ryan smiled. "It's the most important thing here." She softened. "Why?" "Because it reminds me what matters, that the strongest systems need human hearts behind them." She reached for his hand and didn't let go. Late October brought a golden Sunday. Emma, Ryan, and Max strolled through the park near her mother's care home. The trees blazed crimson and amber. Max kicked through leaves, laughing, while Emma walked beside Ryan, her coat buttoned tight against the breeze. They approached the building. Music drifted from an open window, an old piano tune her mother loved. Emma paused, uncertain. "Do you think she'll remember me today?" Ryan squeezed her hand. "She always does, even when she doesn't." Inside, a nurse led them to the courtyard. Her mother sat in a wheelchair, eyes closed, a blanket on her lap. Emma knelt beside her. "Hi, Mama." Her mother opened her eyes slowly. For a moment, nothing. Then her gaze locked with Emma's. Recognition. "Emma?" she said, voice fragile. Emma gasped, tears rushing forward. From behind, Max cried out, "She remembers! Mom remembers!" The nurse covered her mouth in surprise. Emma reached for her mother's face, whispering, "Yes, Mama, I'm here." Her mother smiled. Emma turned, walked into Ryan's arms and held him tight, tears falling freely. "She remembered," she whispered. Ryan held her close. "You gave her something to come back to." Emma pulled back, looking up at him. "No, we did." He cupped her cheek gently. "You healed a system," he said, "and you healed me." Emma leaned in and kissed him, slow and grateful, as golden leaves swirled around them. She was no longer the invisible girl in the dish pit. She had become someone extraordinary because of who she chose to be. And love, steady and quiet, walked right beside her. Emma's story is a reminder that even in the darkest places, compassion can still take root and love can still grow. If her journey touched your heart, please subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories, where we share real, powerful tales that celebrate resilience, hope, and the quiet strength in everyday lives. Join us and never miss a story that could change the way you see the world.